When we think about psychological abuse, we usually picture a two-person drama, the abuser and the victim. But what if I told you that's almost never the full story? Narcissistic abuse is rarely a solo act. So today, let's dive into that invisible network that makes it all possible. So, does abuse really happen in a vacuum? According to the research, the answer is a hard no. And understanding why is the absolute key to seeing the full, complex picture of these situations. And this is the central idea right here. Beyond the main players, there's almost always a supporting cast, a whole network of people who, whether they realize it or not, help the abuser maintain control and keep that cycle of abuse going. Today, we're going to spotlight two of the most critical roles in this hidden network. All right, let's start with the first key figure. It's a term you might have heard before, but we're going to get really precise about its role in this dynamic. We're talking about the facilitator, or the enabler. So what exactly is an enabler? Well, it's someone whose inaction, whose choice to just look the other way or to rationalize someone's behavior, basically gives a green light to the abuser. There might not be any active malice there. A lot of the time, their contribution is just passivity. But the effect is exactly the same. The abuser feels validated, and the victim is left unprotected. The internal logic of the enabler can often be summed up by this one phrase: it's just easier to give in than to fight back. And this isn't just about taking the easy way out. It's often a decision rooted in a deep psychological survival mechanism, an attempt to avoid conflict at all costs. And that decision to give in, it doesn't come from nowhere. There are some really complex motivations at play. It could be a genuine fear of becoming the next target, an emotional or financial dependency that makes confrontation feel impossible, or even a kind of cognitive dissonance where they minimize the abuse, telling themselves, "Oh, it's not that bad." Understanding this is crucial because it shows that enablers are often trapped in their own way too. Okay, let's shift gears to our second key figure. This one is more active and, in a lot of ways, much more insidious. These are the unwitting accomplices. The most common term for this role actually comes from a pretty unexpected place: the Wizard of Oz. And as strange as that sounds, the metaphor perfectly describes a very real and very destructive psychological phenomenon. They're known as flying monkeys. Just like the servants of the Wicked Witch of the West, these are people who are recruited and manipulated by the narcissist. They don't see themselves as accomplices. They often genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. The abuser uses a tactic called triangulation, bringing them into the dynamic to become their mouthpieces, their spies, and their defenders, all without them realizing they're being used as a weapon. So how does this recruitment even happen? It's a disturbingly effective three-step process. First, the narcissist builds a compelling narrative where they paint themselves as the wronged victim. Second, the accomplice, who's often a well-meaning person, buys into this distorted version of events. And third, they take action, confronting the real victim, spreading rumors, or isolating them, all while believing they're acting out of concern or a sense of justice. Okay, so we have these two distinct roles: the enabler, who is passive, and the flying monkey, who is active. Now let's put them side by side to really understand their differences, and more importantly, their combined impact. The core difference between these two roles really boils down to action and awareness. The enabler's failure is one of omission. They are a silent bystander. The flying monkey, on the other hand, is an active participant, used as an indirect weapon. And maybe the most crucial distinction is this: while the enabler might suspect something is wrong, the flying monkey is often completely convinced they're on the right side. And this is the devastating result. A simple, chilling fact. Because of this network, the abuser is never truly acting alone. They have an entire system working to amplify their power and validate their distorted reality. For the person being targeted, the consequences are, well, they're catastrophic. It's no longer about one person's opinion. It's a full-on psychological siege. This leads to total isolation, makes the victim doubt their own sanity, a process we call gaslighting, and it can destroy their reputation. The pain doesn't just come from the abuser anymore. It comes from people the victim thought they could trust. This quote from our source is just incredibly profound. The narcissist performs a kind of emotional jujitsu. They take one of our best human qualities, empathy, and they weaponize it. They hijack the goodwill of others, redirecting the sympathy that should go to the victim and absorbing it all for themselves. It is a masterful and destructive manipulation.
So, in the face of such a complex and powerful dynamic, what can possibly be done? The answer, according to our source, lies in one thing: awareness. Understanding the game is the only way to stop playing it.
For someone going through this, recognizing these roles isn't just an academic exercise, it's a lifeline. It is the critical first step towards self-preservation. When you can name the players and identify their moves, you start to take back your power and reclaim your reality. And this awareness has the power to shift the entire dynamic by empowering everyone involved. For the victim, it reduces self-blame and helps them figure out who they can actually trust. An enabler with new understanding might find the courage to intervene. And a flying monkey, once they realize they've been manipulated, can choose to stop being a pawn. This knowledge is what can ultimately break the cycle. And we'll end with this, a question for all of us to reflect on, because these dynamics don't just happen in other people's lives. In any conflict we witness, in any story we hear, we have a choice. Are we a silent bystander, an unwitting accomplice, or an ally to the person who actually needs support? Understanding this invisible network forces us to question our own role.